Hello, Gary Stearman, speaking to you from the Prophecy Watchers studio, and it's about 3 days following the wonderful, wonderful prophecy forum that we had in Norman, Oklahoma. Bob and I are still basking in the glow of the wonderful people that came, the blessings that they laid on us, the absolutely wonderful response to speakers, and all of them, virtually everybody I talked to said it was the best conference they have ever attended. Right, Bob?
Well, it certainly is the most unusual conference put on by anybody in the world today. We actually had 34 speakers at the conference this year, which is a bit overwhelming for the guy who's got to pick them up at the airport and take them back to the airport, and you're looking at them.
Absolutely. Bob extended himself beyond the limits to do what he did at that conference, and both of us are just a tad worn out, but we're recovering.
Well, I finished airport duty, and then I had to unpack 400 boxes of books from the conference, and I left here around 1:45 in the morning. But guess what? It's all done. I'm feeling good, and I'm ready for action. You know, our conference blessed so many people. You said it well. The nicest, kindest people from Texas, from Oklahoma, from New Mexico, from Colorado, from Missouri, from Louisiana, from Arkansas. They came from all of these states surrounding us. And I must have shaken a couple thousand hands, Gary, some of them twice.
Absolutely, and not only from our local area. I was shocked to meet people from Norway, a couple of men from Norway, a young couple from Switzerland, beautiful people. They came all the way from Switzerland just to fellowship with like-minded believers. It was just mind-boggling.
And let's not forget the Austrians. I'm sure they're watching it today.
Yes.
Wondering, hey, are they going to mention us on an update? And all we can say is thank you for coming such a long way. There is such a hunger in Europe for Bible prophecy. And our conference literally reaches out all across the world to people in the four corners of the earth. You know, we're still live streaming the conference. If you missed it, I mean, literally there are over 70 presentations that were presented at the conference. 42 of them are live streamed, with 44 messages from last year's conference as a free bonus. So you've got 86 messages to listen to. You've got 60 days to listen to them all. So one message a day, is that too much?
Not at all, particularly when you look at the content. Fantastic content, wonderful speakers, not only top of the mark when it comes to quality, when it comes to wisdom, but also the presentations that were made were speaking to subjects that are very, very current, things that are happening in the world right now. And I think we all had our eyebrows raised a few times by some of the disclosures that were made at that meeting.
We sure did. You know, you can still sign up for the live streaming. Head over to prophecywatchers.com, click on the live streaming banner. You can be part of the event yourself and experience the joy that we did.
And for me, the top event of the whole conference came Saturday night. We stood on stage, Bob Ulrich and myself, along with the Prophecy Watchers Board of Directors. And Bob, we made an announcement, and I want you to talk about what we announced, because it's going to change everything in our lives.
Well, it was a really, really emotional time for us. It was hard for Gary and I both to even get through the announcement. You can watch the announcement on our website. It's about 48 minutes long. And we poured our hearts out to our friends and supporters. God has opened up a door for us that's just unbelievable. You may not know this as we sit here and record this program today, but we are experiencing some major growing pains here at the ministry. We're out of space. We do not have the ability to build anything else on our property within any logical reason. We have a major parking problem. The biggest thing is we have a major noise problem. Sometimes as we're sitting here recording television programs, we have to stop 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times during a 30-minute program just to get through the program. We've got garbage trucks, we've got dump trucks, construction vehicles, and at least 2 or 3 Mustangs across the street with no mufflers.
And we, by the way, we illustrated this with a video that we made. It's a very short video, a little over 3 minutes, demonstrating exactly what happens in the studio. You can see it for yourself. The video was the highlight of our announcement.
It really was. It was a blooper reel. The look on Mark Hitchcock's face,
Yeah.
Jan Markell's face, Richard Shaw's face, all of our guests, when they realize that we have to stop the program because the noise is so loud, was just priceless. Now, we've made a major acquisition. We have been given the opportunity, believe it or not, and sometimes we can't even believe it, to acquire the Oklahoma City headquarters of the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Now, you've got to watch the video to see how this all came about. I mean, I don't want to say it was accidental because we know it wasn't. We know it was God leading the way, stepping out in front of us and recognizing the problems we have here and saying, well, let me fix those problems for you guys. And when you hear the whole story one day, when all is said and done, you're going to be amazed. The property we've acquired sits on 35 acres. It's 13,250 square feet in building. Now, right now, we have about 4,000 square feet, so it's more than 3 times the space we have now. Most important part is there's a 4,000 square foot series of television studios in this building, and all of them are soundproofed. There's a radio studio that's soundproof. There's massive warehouse space. There's satellite dishes on the property, and we'll tell you later what we're going to do with those. But you know, God, years ago you said to me God was going to drop a building on our heads, and you know He did. Well, guess what? He did it again.
He did it, and by the way, it was not just a building. This building is specifically designed for broadcasting, and it has all the office space and shipping space. If we had designed the building, Bob, we could have done a better job, right?
I know this is going to make you laugh, but if you can believe this, Gary Stearman does not even have an office in our building. I have an office, but it's filled with things so high that I can't even sit at the desk. You're going to have your own office, Gary.
Bob, I'll look forward to that. And it'll be a place where we can all meet around a conference table and develop ideas.
We have so many things going through our heads right now, so many plans, production facilities that we've never had. Our video editor doesn't have an office. He works at a little desk in our studio here. And we make do with what God has given us, and we're grateful for that. But we're going to have an opportunity to do bigger and better things for the Lord. And that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
And speaking of bigger and better, let's just talk about a few things right now. What about a digital magazine, Bob?
You know, we rolled out a digital magazine months ago and probably never talked about it.
That's right.
It's up there on the website. If you found it, God bless you. But guess what? You don't have to get the print magazine if you don't want to. We'd be happy to send it to you on the internet. $20 for a digital subscription for 1 year. Or we even have, between now and the end of the year, a lifetime digital subscription for $100 where you never have to pay for our magazine again.
Absolutely.
There's another big announcement, too. At the conference, I sat down with Brent Miller Jr., the producer and filmmaker who's producing a new video called Before the Wrath. About a year ago, we started a fundraising effort to distribute Brent's video to every corner of the four corners of the earth. We were so enamored by Brent's filmmaking ability, the final prophecies, the coming convergence, that we wanted to promote this new video that he was making. It was supposed to come out months ago. We were given another date, January of 2019. It's not going to happen. We found out at the conference that the new release date is the summer of 2019. A couple of people have emailed us. A couple of people are angry. We don't have anything to do with the production and the release date of the movie. I can just tell you this, they ran into some serious problems where they had to move the movie set due to persecution and discrimination against Christians and the message involved in this movie. So we would just ask you to be patient just a little while longer. I know Brent is working hard. It's a huge project. When he told me the people involved in this is going to be in theaters all over the country. It's going to be in Walmart. It's going to be in Target. The distribution channels have really taken up a lot of time and effort.
Now, as we talk about where we're going from here, and we have wonderful plans, along the way, we have found ourselves meeting a little criticism from outside, and we wanted to address that. And in particular, if you have encountered criticism against Prophecy Watchers, we've got a few words that we'd like to say to you right now.
Well, you know, it's never pleasant to be accused of something unjustly. as our new Supreme Court Justice can testify.
How about that?
It's a very uncomfortable position to be put in, to try to defend yourself against something that in many cases never happened. But I want to ask you, as a pastor for the last 40 years, how do you respond to criticism? How do you respond to things that are said about you personally that are hurtful and untrue? There's a letter circulating about us, and I've documented 59 lies, misstatements, mischaracterizations, half-truths, and I've gone through this line by line. But as a pastor, and let me just tell you, we've chosen not to respond to those accusations. But tell us, Pastor, how do you deal with this from a biblical perspective?
Well, Jesus himself is the model. And the psalmist's description of Jesus standing as a sheep before his shearers in absolute silence is kind of the biblical model. Many of the heroes of the faith became martyrs, essentially did not answer criticism. Some did, but they never did it on the basis that they were rectifying the situation. They always turned to the Lord and said, Lord, this is what's happening, and we beseech you to take care of this situation. Now, in Jesus' case, with the famous trial where the crowd shouted, give us Barabbas, Jesus was absolutely silent. He's kind of the model, the Christian model. And as these criticisms have flooded the email channels in various ways and for some time now, Bob and I have really taken that approach, the silent approach. And we believe that it's right. However, I must say that we have a number of friends of this ministry who've been through a lot of these dramatic developments with us. They have been witnesses to the behind-the-scenes developments over the past 40 years or so, and they understand the truth about, or the truth behind the accusations. And Bob, at this point in time, I know you do, and I do as well, want to give accolades and high praise to those people who have stood with us. And you know their names. Many of them have appeared from time to time on Prophecy Watchers. Why don't we talk about some of these guys?
You know, we have a lot of friends. We've been in the ministry. I've been in the ministry for 25 years now. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, a lot of you know my old story. At one time, I was a wealthy land developer in New Jersey. I lost everything I owned. My parents went bankrupt at 62 years old. I waited 7 years after getting to Oklahoma to actually file bankruptcy, waiting for a miracle that never came. It's the hardest period of time in my life, but the most important thing of that whole story is God took everything away from me. And I was making lots and lots of money. I lived in a mansion. He took everything away from me because the only way that he could get me to go into ministry was to remove everything that I owned. I mean, first it was a bankruptcy, then it was a fire that burned my house down. I literally have gone through the fire, so to speak.
Well, true.
But you know, I look back on everything that's happened to me, all these terrible things. I had a guy say to me one time that he says, boy, I don't think I could handle it if I lost all my stuff. Well, believe me, I lost all my stuff. And life went on. And I just view it as such an incredible blessing because God put me on a new course, took me out of the real estate business, and put me in the ministry. And how can you complain about that 25 years later? You know, you and I are very different individuals. You model a lot of the grace of Jesus, and I'm not calling you Jesus, but the biblical example of how Jesus would answer. I'm Peter, and I have a sword. And you know, human nature is such that you like to lash out, you like to strike back, you like to answer every charge. In fact, I have a 5-page document here answering every terrible thing that's been said about us and about me, because they're good answers for all those things. And guess what? I'm not going to read it.
And Bob, I think that's wise. You know, what do you do if you're deeply criticized and the critic does not desire reconciliation? And I believe that's the case we're in right now. And in that case, you pray, you make sure that you're right with the Lord. And the thing that the Lord will do, and I've seen this so many times in my life, is that he will bring friends alongside you to lift you up and to support you. And ultimately, the truth is going to be known, and I'm absolutely confident in this case that's what's going to happen.
You know the old expression, there's two sides to every story. And I heard a great message by my good friend and former pastor, Tom Elliff, years ago, and the message was entitled One Missing Fact. And I've got to tell the story because, to me, it's easy to jump to conclusions. It's easy to read something and immediately respond, and we all do it. I mean, every single one of us, we read something on the internet and just assume it's true. I mean, if you see it on the internet, it has to be true, right?
Right, it has to be.
But I've got to tell you, Tom told a story one time in church that I've never forgotten. It's a story of two men in a hospital room, and I suspect some of you have heard this or read this before. But the one man is a very angry individual, and he's confined to a bed in a hospital room. And he's a surly guy, and he's not a Christian. And he just had a very, very serious surgery, and he is going to be flat on his back, and he is not going to move. And he's angry at God. He's angry at the world. And one day, guess what? He gets a roommate. And that roommate is a Christian, and he is the happiest-go-luckiest guy in the whole world. And he comes into that hospital room, and he starts talking to this man in the hospital bed and trying to cheer him up. And this guy wants no part of this happy-go-lucky guy. He basically does everything but dress him down and cuss him out and say, "Leave me alone. I don't want to hear anything from you. I just want to lay in this bed in misery." So days go by, and the happy-go-lucky guy says, "Hey, how would you like me to go over to the window in the hospital room and kind of tell you what's going on outside the room, in the outside world?" And he says, "Well, I guess that would be okay. I'm getting kind of tired and worn out." So this other man who had just had surgery goes over to the window and he says, "Hey," says, "look at that. The kids next door at the school are out playing on the playground. Oh, little Johnny just fell off the monkey bars, landed right on his head. Up, he's fine." Truck pulls up out front, delivering flowers. I wonder who those are for. Another ambulance pulls up, and they take a box out of the ambulance, and it looks like something that may be ready for a transplant. And all these events happening outside the hospital window are relayed to this man every day. Well, this went on for a few days until one day the angry man couldn't hold it in any longer, and he started screaming at this man who was being so kind to him. And he said, "I don't want to hear another word from you. I am so sick and tired of you telling me what's going on outside the hospital. I don't want to hear another word from you. Please don't speak again." And so he didn't. The next day, they took the happy-go-lucky man off to surgery. And a few hours later, some interns came into the room and cleaned off his bed and took the sheets away. And the angry man said, "What happened to my friend? What happened to my roommate?" He said, "Well, he didn't make it through the surgery." So the angry man said to the intern, "Would you do me a favor? Would you look outside? I really miss those updates I was getting every day, and you've got to tell me what's happening outside. Are there flowers being delivered? Are the kids out yet? Is there an ambulance out front? What's the weather like?" So the intern walked over to the window. He looked outside, and he turned around and looked at the man and said, "Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's nothing but a brick wall here. This was sealed up years ago when they built the parking garage, and there's nothing here to see." And with that said, this man's heart fell into his stomach when he realized that this man was just trying to cheer him up. And so the moral of the story is, be careful of the one missing fact that changes the whole narrative of the story. Sorry if it's emotional for me. It is an emotional time. Gary and I are working hard to grow this ministry. This is one of our greatest triumphs with this building. And it is an emotional time for both of us. God has gifted us way more than we deserve. And we're looking to honor him, preach the gospel. And I'll let you close.
Bob, what I'd like to say at this point is stick around with us for just a little while. And that one missing fact is going to come to light. And I think you're going to really, really be moved when it does. Because the Lord has led us in a very specific way with a very specific mission. And we're going to go ahead at top speed to try to accomplish the mission that the Lord has laid out before us. In the meantime, we're going to do it with a positive nature, with faith, and most of all, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, Bob.
We're going to trust the Lord.
Absolutely.
And you know, this isn't about you.
No.
This isn't about me.
Right.
It's not about any of our employees, my wife, your wife. We all work hard to grow this ministry. This is about the Lord. This is about reaching people. And we're going to continue to do that with your help.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths.
Amen.
I'm Gary Stearman for Bob Ulrich. We are watching. You be watching too. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.